So just a couple of announcements. We had our Rotary board meeting by Zoom on Tuesday, and I was in the car. That was a different experience. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, but I did it. And I believe, do we have Derek Tokos as our guest today on? Is he already on?
He's on.
Yes, I'm on.
So welcome, Derek. Thank you for joining us. At the
Yeah, you bet.
At the board meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about the June 25th banquet. Ursula was kind of updated us on some outlook on how long we'd be shut down. Ursula, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about what you told us?
Well, actually what I had said was that we were talking about, you know, events and potentially doing our banquet at the end of June. And I just said that the foundation had just met with our event planner who does events for, you know, the region. And he said that they are recommending people create virtual events through the end of the year and maybe even into the first and second quarters of 2021. Now that, you know, could be something where if things change, you've got your digital event, but then you can maybe do something in person, you know, if things change, if you get closer to that date as we move out, but that's really what the recommendation is. And our senior leadership at Samaritan also is highly encouraging us to not do large gatherings through the rest of the year. I just saw the update from the governor about the reopening. There was a great recap on opb.org, and it did say that there are no large gatherings, people have 100 or more through September, and potentially until there's a vaccine, which is what makes sense, a vaccine or a cure. That groups of 20, they're starting to look at opening up the county by county if they meet certain requirements. I can forward the link to that article to John Zagel or somebody who could distribute it to everybody. But yeah, so.
Okay, that would be good. Thank you. So with that, we've formed a committee consisting of Doretta, because she's club service, Ursula, because she has such good contacts within the health system, and then the executive team of Freddie, myself, John Zagel, Richard, Miranda, and Jim to kind of discuss what we're going to do with the banquet. I know Doretta has reached out to Best Western and gotten a few ideas, so more to come on that. I just wanted to let you know, because my last email was that we were scheduled to be at the Best Western June 25th, but it's changing day by day. You know, I wish that we could. I just don't know if we will at this point. And the other announcements I had, we got thank you notes from the hospital for our gift of feeding the staff there, as well as our contribution to the patient care fund. And then we also got a thank you note from the health center from when we helped them with $100 to provide basic needs for supplies and food to students. And then Sonia Graham asked that I announce this today. It's kind of cute, but we all know Mother's Day is this weekend. And on Saturday, Ocean View Senior Living is having a Mother's Day parade. They're asking people to decorate their cars and drive by and wave at everybody. And that starts at 11. So if you would like to participate, you would line up at 10:45. And I've been told, I hope the board's okay with this, I've been told that if a Rotarian does that we can give them a makeup. So. Okay, with that, does anyone else have anything that they would like to announce or share at this time?
I'll start. I put a post up or shared with John, and John shared it but the high school, Newport High School Honor Society is doing that drive for my sister's place. If somebody is out of the area or they want to contribute or donate, we just contact me and I'll figure out a way to collect the donations because they're being picked up by some of the board members on the Honor Society. So there is an email, there is a way to contact with those individuals, or connect with me and I can help facilitate that.
Thank you. And I guess I'm curious if Jim Wendell got to open yet. Did you get your PPE so you could open?
No, they're still on back order.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So Bob, I'm going to go to you for Happy Bucks.
Okay. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't see me. I can't see me, so I don't know.
If it makes you feel any better, you do look like Bob.
There, you're still
Yeah.
you. You're still you.
Why
You
can't
think my hair is it coming back?
Looking good.
Why is
Where-
John Clark smiling on that?
Where did you,
Oh, he's got happy dollars.
Bob, why did you get a haircut?
Why did I get a haircut?
It's not
Because
essential.
I still can.
You just can't grow hair.
No, I keep it cut. And if you come over, I'll cut your hair.
No thanks.
So who's all got a happy dollar?
I have a happy dollar.
What's your happy dollar all about?
It is, and John Zagel's probably not going to believe this because it'll show him how old we both are. But today is my daughter's 40th birthday.
Oh,
Wow.
I hate to admit that. I cannot believe she's 40 years old. I don't think she can believe she's 40. So I will be $40 happy, and I'll do it to the general fund since we're giving all this money away out of our general fund. So
Okay, does anybody else want to belly up to the bar and pay a happy dollar?
I'll do a happy dollar. Well, for two things. We welcomes back our furloughed staff today at Olala Center. So all of our day treatment staff who were laid off are now back and doing planning and all of the wonderful telehealth packages that Rotary supported are out to families and being well used. And they'll continue to be used even as we open up because a lot of the families are in vulnerable situations. They're not able to come back yet, even if other people are able to gather. So, I'm just being conservative with money since we're putting it all towards our families at Olala. So I'll be $2 happy for both of those things.
Well, thank you very much. That's very generous of you. Anybody else got their hand up? Diane, you look like you've got something to say. Diane, nothing? Are you and Keith fighting?
I think I might recognize that, but I don't feel anything, so I must not.
Well, okay, well, we'll skip that
So
question then.
So I'll give $10 to the general fund because we're not fighting. How's that? I'll be
There
happy.
you go. And you're happy about that.
Yes, I'd be happy about that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for thinking of that, Bob.
Okay, okay, yeah. Anybody else?
Bob, this is Doug.
who's going?
What was
I'll
that?
It's
I'll let
Doretta.
others.
I know, I see you.
Doretta, go ahead.
Hi, Bob. I'll give $25 for the fact that our community has pulled together and kept us safe, and we only have 6 people infected in the whole county.
You know,
Way to
by
go.
golly, that's very good. And you know, I'm gonna give $25 too. That we've been pretty fortunate here so far.
Yeah,
So Bob,
and I'll add 50 to that same thing.
Hey, Sandy, nice to see you again.
And it's so good to be back. So, yes, put 50 on that for me.
Okay,
Bob, this is Doug. Can you hear me?
I can, but I don't know who I'm listening to.
Doug
This
Hunt.
is Doug.
Oh, hi, Doug. How are you?
I'm well, and as you might imagine, my life's been a little crazy. My attendance at Rotary is dismal. and I apologize for that. But I am here today virtually, and I'll certainly contribute $25 in recognition of all of the efforts of our residents to try to keep everyone safe and healthy and avoid the spread of the virus. So thank you to all, and I'm happy because of that.
Well, thank you very much, Doug, and we're all happy to have you as our representative, and just hang in there. I know you're very, very busy, but
Interesting times for sure.
yes, it is. Okay, well, I think we've done all right.
Yeah.
Julie, why don't you move on? And I'm not talking about the meeting either. I'm talking, never mind.
Yeah, I felt that in your tone of voice. So I will move on. So Derek, today we have with us from the city of Newport, Derek Tokos, who has been wanting to speak to us for quite some time on the transportation plan. So Derek, I'm going to turn it over to you. What exactly is I forgot what your title is. I'm sorry, at the city. So if you could.
Sure, I'm the city's community development director, but I'm called many things depending upon the audience.
I know, that's what, yeah, you're the jack of all trades, so.
I did provide John with about 12 slides. I don't know if you have the ability to share those with everybody or not.
Yep, there you
Yes.
go. We can see it.
Thanks for providing a little bit of time today. I'd like to talk about a couple of things actually, where we're at with our transportation system plan and a small business assistance grant program that we're hoping to roll out here shortly. I'd like to spend a little bit of time at the end on that as well. Next slide would be fine. As some of you may know, we make our transportation investments based on plans, and when we do planning, it's like a system plan, like a transportation system plan. It's for a 20-year planning period to guide future investments in the city's transportation system. And when we're talking about the transportation system, we're talking about streets for vehicles, we're talking about signals, traffic control, bike and pedestrian facilities, accessibility needs, safety enhancements, transit, that kind of thing. Next slide. There are a number of reasons why we do transportation system plan updates. One is to improve our understanding of current conditions and future needs of the community. That obviously changes over time. And so we need to check in periodically to make sure that the investments that are being made are the investments that should be made. It's an opportunity to identify strategies for enhancing the transportation system, both in the near term and the long term. It's a mechanism for weighing some of the key strategies against, anticipated funding over that period of time. The transportation system plan is a little different from some of the other plans in that we actually do have quite a bit of funding behind this over that period of time. And out of this process, we'll come up with what we call a fiscally constrained list of prioritized projects. So the top priority projects actually would have funding program behind them at some point in time during that planning period. This type of transportation system planning process is used by policymakers, informs them on how best to make investments over this period of time, and it's an opportunity to ensure that what we're doing is consistent with the state and federal regulations that we have to comply with. Next slide. So again, what do we want? What do we have now? What will we need in the future? How do we pay for it? And what should we do first? I mean, those are really kind of the things that we're trying to address with this transportation system plan. Next slide. One of the key focal areas as part of this planning update is the US 101 and US 20 corridors, particularly the downtown or city center area. As many of you know, we put together a new urban renewal district, new North Side district. The old one had closed down several years ago, to generate some funding for this work. And we're going to be looking at modest changes, and we're going to be looking at more significant changes. You know, things such as couplets, you know, so where you would take, you know, for 101, for example, you know, you could take your, some of that traffic and put it on 9th. And so your northbound traffic would be routed on the 9th, your southbound stays on 101. You all of a sudden get a whole bunch more real estate to, say, extend sidewalks out, make it a much more pedestrian friendly environment. Because without having to go and buy a whole bunch of right-of-way, which would be difficult given the built environment we're working with. So we'll be looking at some of those different alternatives. We're going to look at north-south alternatives to US 101, the Harney Street connection that's been on the books as a potential connection for a very long time. Possible use of 7th, 9, and Ocean View to create a north-south alternative to 101 west of 101. So there will be a lot of concepts, big and small, that are discussed as part of this. And we hoped COVID to do a pretty extensive big round of workshops towards the end of April, early May. That's been kind of blown up. And so we're kind of re that we can do based on the limitations we're working with the pandemic. And so once we have that sorted out, we'll be getting that out to the community. It's very important, this kind of planning process, we've got to have meaningful input from key stakeholders and members of the community generally for this kind of plan to be viable. Next slide. Agate Beach is going to get some attention out of this as well. You know, that was an area that annexed into the city in the 80s, has underdeveloped infrastructure. We'll have funding to pave gravel streets, complete streets where where you've got gaps in the street network, that kind of thing. But we want to make sure we do that in a way that's sensitive to the underlying geology of the area, because as you all know, you know, we have active slides there, slow moving slide blocks. We don't want to change how drainage is handled in a manner that's going to exacerbate that kind of a condition. So we want to be sensitive to that. We do have a few larger properties, particularly on the east side of 101 up in the Agate Beach area, where you know, they would be developable if not for the fact that we just don't have the infrastructure there yet. So that's another thing we want to take a look at. How can we get that infrastructure there so those properties can be developed? And we can get in these areas primarily some additional residential housing that we sorely need. Next slide. That's just a quick overview. The map is of the new North Side District, or relatively new. It was established in 2015. Excuse me. This gives you a sense of the kind of funding that will be available for transportation projects in Newport over the 20-year planning period. Anything we do with US 20 and 101, the state's going to have a pretty significant, you know, influence on that since they are state facilities. That said, they'll also bring funding to the table for those solutions, and we hope, you know, through this process we map out what some of those can be. We're pretty competitive when we, when we're trying to package together projects and we can bring a significant amount of urban renewal funds to the table. That puts us in a little bit better position than some other jurisdictions that are competing for the same state and federal discretionary funds. Next slide. So there are a number of steps in this process, and we're not starting right now. We actually started in the fall of last year, putting together kind of a public involvement program We do have a project website. I'll be plugging that here. It's in a few more slides. We do have a project advisory committee of a number of key stakeholders in the community. We've also done a lot of individual stakeholder outreach and small group outreach. Rotary was actually on the group outreach docket, so to speak. A number of you participating probably had calls from our consultant GLA, who's handling the stakeholder interviews. We are trying to do a little bit better job as a city to reach out to underrepresented populations like the Latino community. We've done quite a bit of background work, policy review, the kind of stuff that happens behind the scenes to kind of organize this information in a way that makes sense to people. Existing condition assessments have been completed, shared with our advisory committee. They last met in March, right before the emergency order started going into effect. Forecasted future conditions we're going to be rolled out at the workshops. We've got to figure out how we're going to roll that stuff out with the COVID limitations we're dealing with. We have some potential solutions in very draft form. We're gonna use design charrettes with the public to interactively mock those up and provide additional detail. Again, we have to kind of retool some of that. Test against policy objectives. We have to, once we do finally get to something more of a, preferred level, we really have to perform financial analysis to make sure that the solutions that are being brought forward are actually realistic and things we could actually pay for. We are taking the opportunity to update our standards and guidelines as part of this, trying to build more flexibility in terms of what our public improvement requirements are. Different street sections can be used in different circumstances, that kind of thing. We also want to spend a little bit of time on what we call exactions, or what the city requires somebody who's doing development to install in the way of public improvements, such as, say, widening a street along the property frontage or installing sidewalk, things of that nature. All of this is something, that as we go through this iterative process, we want to make sure are vetted effectively with the public, and then we roll it into actual package of amendments and move it through a formal adoption process that involves policymakers like the Planning Commission, Council, and ultimately the Oregon Transportation Commission. Next slide. This is the schedule that got blown up by COVID. We've got some meetings set up with the consultants we're working with and the state of Oregon, since it's a partnership, it's a team, to figure out how we retool public involvement. My guess is what we'll end up doing is a lot more, or plugging in several online surveys and trying to work it that way, and try to work more small group sessions, because the large workshops, I don't think it's going to be viable given what we're dealing with right now. Our hope is to wrap this project up around in 2021, and we'll move on from there, particularly for City Center, with making some adjustments on the private side, the land use regulation side of what we deal with here in the city. So think of it this way: this process will give us a pretty good idea of where we need to go with respect to the public right-of-way, public space. And so once we have that figured out, particularly in areas like City Center, we want to make sure that what we're asking people, the parameters for development of private property, align with what we're trying to achieve overall. Next slide. So how do you learn more? How do you get involved? How do you share your thoughts with us and others? We have a website, www.newportsp.org. There is a way for you to provide comment interactively. We got a map there where you can kind of drop a pin in a particular location, provide some comments. If you think a certain improvement's needed or a change should be made. You can also contact me directly, and that's my contact information there. or you can reach out to James Feldman. He's with the Oregon Department of Transportation, and he's the lead on this project from the state side. I do hope, before I go into the small business assistance proposal, that, you know, once we kind of sort out moving forward how we can best engage the public, given the conditions we're dealing with the pandemic, I do expect that we're going to have some additional questionnaires and things of that nature. And once we have that sorted out, I'd like to be able to kind of route that to you guys and others, and give you an opportunity to take a look at it and provide whatever feedback you feel is appropriate. All right, that's all I had on that topic. I did want to touch about a small business assistance grant proposal we're working with the city council on. We've identified about $1 million of interest earnings on the tax increment that our urban renewal districts collect, specifically the tax increment that's been collected in South Beach, because that's the most mature urban renewal district that the city has. It was established originally in 1983. And so that's an accumulated amount of interest earnings. They're normally driven back into urban renewal projects, but they're also unrestricted in terms of how they're used, whereas most urban renewal monies are very strictly limited in terms of how the agency can use them. So what we're working on is the urban renewal agency would shift about $1 million of these interest earnings on tax increment to the city of Newport for use for small business assistance grants. These would help businesses with the capital costs they're going to incur to reopen. You're looking at a maximum award of $10,000 per business or business owner. For business eligibility, and there are a few details on this we're still working out, but it's really supposed to be targeted to commercial storefronts within the city of Newport proper or within the Newport urban growth boundary. We do have some commercial properties in South Beach, for example, that are within the urban growth boundary, but not in the city yet. And since the funding from this is coming out of that South Beach urban renewal district, we thought only fair that they would have the opportunity as well. It's targeted to businesses, 30 or fewer full-time equivalents. If they're in the city, they have to have a valid business license. We're looking to get these monies out to businesses that are owned by an Oregon resident that resides in Lincoln County. I mean, that would include franchises in some cases. Eligible expenses would be product, particularly like restaurants that have to buy a whole bunch of perishable goods just to get going again. Payroll, mortgage, rent, utilities, that kind of thing. Thank you, Julie, Doug, Dave Price, Judy Cool. They served as a little steering committee. It kind of helped us kind of pull this together and frame it in a way that we think makes sense and will do the best good given the funding we have. Next slide. I want to emphasize that the City Council has not made a final decision on this yet. They have had the opportunity to review the program. There was general consensus that it's going in the right direction. We had some good positive feedback on a few things we need to follow up on and adjust in the application materials. It's going to be presented for potential adoption to the group on May 18th. That would be both the Urban Renewal Agency, who has to act in terms of transferring the funds to the city, and I understand, I appreciate that the City Council and Urban Renewal, they're the same people, but they are different legal entities, and that's why we have to handle it that way. And then that same evening, the council would have the opportunity to establish the program. If it happens that way, then we will be positioned to roll the thing out on May 19th and would look to give businesses until May 29th to get their applications into us. We're trying to keep it simple, simple one-page application, giving people electronic filing opportunity. there are some key attachments because this is a grant program. We explored loan versus grant, and grant made a whole lot more sense to us. It's a lot more straightforward and simple, and that's really where we're trying to go with this. But with grants, given that we're a government entity, we have to have completed IRS forms W-9 with these so that we can document where this taxpayer money went and how it was utilized. Gross revenue reports. One of the things we're doing with this is we put together a point system that we worked with that steering committee on, because we want this to be as transparent as possible and as fair as possible in terms of how things are done. One of the things we'll be looking at on the point system has to do with the degree to which a business has been impacted by these government, by the closure orders, the executive orders from the governor, and the local orders with respect to hotels and motels and the like. By submitting gross revenue reports to us from 2019 and 2020 for those periods of time, we'll be able to kind of calculate that and kind of fit people into quartiles. You know, so those that had the most significant impact would get the most points, those in the next tier below, so on and so forth. If they're seeking funds to help pay for rent or mortgage, then they need to submit some documentation, you know, that backs up the amount they're requesting, similar with payroll. You know, we'll be talking more with the council about timelines, but assuming this happens this way, you know, we expect a large number of applications to come in by the 29th, and we'll be working with folks between the 19th and the 29th to address any questions in terms of what they've submitted. But it's unlikely we'll be through all of the applications by then, and so from June 1st to June 5th, but it's going to take us about a week to get the grants prioritized using that point system. A work group of representatives from the taxing entities that normally give up money to urban renewal, they're going to assist us and make sure that the prioritization has been done in a manner that aligns with expectations. And then when that's done, we'd then be able to turn it over to finance to begin distributing the funds. And so that's the program in a nutshell. And that's the extent of my presentation today, but I'm happy to field any questions anybody has.
Anyone have questions for Derek?
I do.
Okay.
Derek, it's Doretta.
Yeah.
So can you shine a little bit of light on what you anticipate happening on the north end of Newport / Beverly Beach area with 101? Obviously, there's probably about 73 feet of asphalt there now with all the patches. What's the long term and when's it going to happen? Because it just keeps getting worse.
I don't know that I have a whole lot of light to shed on that, in part because it's outside the city of Newport, so we're kind of we're not a primary player in that decision-making process. That's going to be more Lincoln County. But what I can tell you is, you know, that's an area where the state ODOT is looking at what they can do given some of the legal limitations relative to development that close to the coastline. There's a goal exception process that they could go through that would allow them to do structural remediation, for example, along the slope there. I'm not sure exactly where they're at with that. I know they were working on that. And I'm not sure exactly what they're looking at right now in terms of the best long-term solution. So I wish I had better info on that one for you.
Any other questions on either program?
I have a question. This is Amy. On how are you distributing the information for these businesses to find out about the $1 million available? Is it through the newspaper, radio, any other ways, or?
Any and all ways we can, you know, through groups like Rotary, through the chamber, the paper, online, News Lincoln County, radio. We're going to use all of those tools and do our best to get the word out. We just want to be careful not to do that until, you know, we know the program is fully adopted. Policymakers have had a chance to make final decisions on this.
So Derek, this is Doug Hunt. I just want to say that I was appreciated the opportunity to be a part of the process that developed that plan. I think it's a very good one, and frankly one that as I work within the county, I'm kind of using that as a template as to how we can put together some programs to help businesses. So again, I know as a part of it, but I think the outcome, the product is excellent, and one that I'm going to use as kind of a general guideline as we develop some similar programs within the county.
Hey, Derek, I'd like to say something too, in the sense that the council,
Sure.
I represent the council.
Yep.
So we met Monday, and as Derek said, we talked about it quite a bit, and we had some discussion about it, and we had some concerns about it. We had concerns about spending urban renewal money for this, and I think after the meeting, everybody was comfortable going ahead with it. But I personally don't think you're going to have much trouble convincing the council that to move forward with this. That's my intuitive sense, just my personal feeling. But I think we're moving ahead pretty quickly, and I'd like to see that money get out there as quickly as possible. So yeah, good presentation, Derek, and yeah, the council I think will support you.
Thank you. Thank you. I do see a question here. Are small lodging facilities eligible for the grants? That's something that we need to talk to policymakers about. They certainly have been impacted. I think, you know, there may be a way for us to frame this such that hotels, motels, which have been impacted by local closure orders or curtailment orders, have an opportunity, but I think our policymakers need to weigh in on that. I don't see this going to vacation rentals or short-term rentals. We are going to talk to our policymakers about what kind of things we can do for vacation rentals since we've effectively shut them down for a few months, but I suspect that's going to have to do more with business licensing and business license fees. It's not going to be a part of this program. Dimar, unless you have any other thoughts on that one.
No, I think what you're saying is true. I don't, the hotels, motels, and the VRDs, we kind of didn't address that, but I think there's so many businesses that are suffering, especially restaurants and retail businesses and people that depend on the tourist industry here, that we felt that we wanted to, as a council, we wanted to help those people before we helped anybody else.
Yeah.
Eric, is there any more talk about parking permits or pay or parking, you know, the little toll deals and those kinds of things in the plan?
Where we're at with that is with respect to the Bayfront, we are going to be working with a new parking advisory committee that the council's asked to have impaneled. That decision happened right before the COVID closure orders. We're going to be pulling together a parking advisory committee and working to refine the plan for the Bayfront to roll out parking meters down there and manage parking on a demand basis with parking permits, well, meter only zones, meter permit zones, and the like down in the Bayfront. The exact timing of that, I really can't say right now. It's certainly not going to happen. You know, at the earliest, it would happen the next summer in 2021. Potentially a little bit later, depends on how that process works itself out. With that, in the Bayfront, there would be a relief from the requirement that businesses provide additional off-street parking when they expand, because we recognize there's just no real estate down there for them to do that. And it is really an impediment to economic development in portions of the Bayfront right now, because they frankly can't provide the off-street parking. And so we'd be going to a demand management approach There are a lot of details that would still need to be sorted out exactly how that works. But that is the direction things are heading for the Bayfront. Nye Beach, we're going to be talking further with Nye Beach, namely to see what an alternative approach would work. In their case, because you have more of a mixed residential commercial footprint in Nye Beach, probably looking at expanding the area where we do parking permitting, adjusting the permitting requirements. Residents would then probably have to pay a fee. Maybe some additional businesses that are currently not within the boundary have to pay a fee to help maintain the public parking assets there and help manage parking down there. So that's kind of where things are at right now. Nothing new for City Center, and I don't expect that. The management plan we did in City Center showed that we have ample amount of public parking out there. It's not being hit too hard. It's reasonably available to people that need it. And that, program may change for City Center when we work through the transportation plan and kind of get a better sense of long-term, what should that business district look like and how are we going to be routing people through that area.
Any further questions? Good information. Thank you, Derek. We appreciate it. So if there's,
you're very welcome.
Yeah, if there's no other questions, or in honor of you speaking to us today, we are going to vaccinate 50 children against polio in your name, and you'll be receiving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Normally I give you that card, but I will be mailing that to you with this COVID. I don't know if you're aware, but Rotary's been working for years to eradicate polio in the world, and we almost had it done. And then there were a few more cases in Nigeria, and Bill Gates partners with us on that. So it's pretty cool. We're pretty proud of that. So thank you very much. And thanks for your work on the small business assistance. What people don't know is that Derek did most of the heavy lifting on that. And I don't even know if that was part of your job originally, but you reached out and got a good plan going. So I really appreciate that and appreciate you're looking for ways to help our community and the businesses in it. So
yeah, thank you.
Mark Miranda, are you going to be the secretary today?
Yes, I think I got tagged for that. Okay, we have 26 people in attendance today, 26 members. The member incentive would have gone to Jeff Peterson if he'd been attending, and that was $10. And John, do you have the social media, which is $5?
Yep, Sylvia Polly won it today. Is she on today?
I don't think so.
No, Sylvia. So we'll add it to next week.
Okay. And for the 50-50, we have $20 to hand out, and I used my random generator on my phone to pick out a number between 1 and 8, and number 6 came out, which is Amy Thompson. And that's all I got.
Okay, I'd like to donate that to our general fund.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you. Is Noemi on the call today?
She's.
I'm here.
Hi, Noemi.
Hi.
Hi. Are you good with putting your presentation together via Zoom on May 28th?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so that will be great. We'd love to see that. And I'm sure that Kathy and Amy can give you guidance and anything. How are you doing? Anything you want to share with us or tell us or say or?
Not really.
Okay.
It's pretty calm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we miss you. So
miss you too.
Thanks for joining us each week. So
I have one thing, Julie.
Okay.
So we rebirthed our YouTube channel. So I'll be posting the whole meetings on YouTube. So I just think it's really important that we stay connected. And if anybody that misses the meeting can watch the whole meeting, then I'll separate the presentation. So if you just want to watch Derek's presentation, we'll have that too. So from now on, we'll have all of our meetings on YouTube, the whole meeting and the transportation, today's Derek's transportation meeting also.
If you let the secretary know that you've watched the meeting, you can get a makeup.
Hey, there you go.
Thank you, John,
Wow.
for everything you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, John. Great job, John.
Yeah, no problem.
John's got a full-time job right now that he didn't apply for, so I appreciate you.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah. That'd be fun to watch YouTube. Maybe we can do some really funny videos on there. Who knows?
What, this isn't funny enough?
Yeah, I know, really. So next week's meeting, we're going to have 2 of the students of the month. And if there's time remaining, then Mark, Miranda, and I will go over the basics of our club financials. And other than that.
Hey, Julie.
Yes.
I don't know if, I'm assuming there's more people on today than there was last week. And I just wanted to reiterate, because we got an update today and PUD still has funds that they can allocate to people who need some assistance with their electricity bill. And so I'm assuming everybody, mostly in Rotary, is probably okay, but those of you that run businesses or have friends or know anyone in need, if they're on unemployment and they would like to apply for 1 month's credit on their electric bill, they can go on Central Lincoln's website, it's clpud.org, and just submit their unemployment information, and they'll get their current month paid for, or if they've managed to pay it but they'd still like the assistance, they can put a credit on for last month's bill. So we'd appreciate you getting the word out to anyone that you know that might need some assistance, because we've still got the board authorized money and we're not close to hitting that total yet. And so we'd love for people in need to be able to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Sonetta. We will share that with people. That's great that you're doing that. Thank you.
So Julie,
go ahead.
This is Doug. Since Rotary really consists of business leaders and members of our business community, I thought I'd take just a moment to try to provide some clarity as far as reopening the county. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, gee, what's the date? What's the date? Well, the date is going to be driven by the virus, and the county is working now, and her criteria really involves 3 areas: public health, i.e. the testing and the number of cases in the hospitals, and then it also involves developing plans, reopening plans for different business sectors, and also a recovery plan. And while our emergency declaration extends to May 31st, a lot of people have said, well, we know the county will be opening on June 1st. Well, depending on the plan, depending on what happens when we do more testing and how many new cases, if any, are identified, there may be some partial reopening at some future date. But the final decision is the governor's, because we have to submit our plan to the governor, and then it has to be approved before we can start implementing it. And I would envision that plan, which is just really an initial development, to be one that has a cooperative effort amongst our communities and frankly, maybe along other coastal counties, as well as a phased-in one that gradually opens the county. So the real message is that we're developing the plan, we'll submit it to the governor when we meet the criteria, and then it's the governor's decision to approve it. One last thing is the county and the cities, excuse me, as Derek indicated, closed the short-term rentals, hospitalities. That is a decision that's up to the county and the cities. But all the other aspects are really a part of the plan that's being submitted to the governor, and ultimately needs to receive her approval. So sorry I lost my voice there a little, but I just wanted to share that and hope it provides some clarity.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because there is a lot of confusion out there as to what's happening. So thank you. We have like 5 minutes. Does anyone have questions of Doug regarding that? I hope you don't mind that I call that out.
No, happy to. As long as I don't lose my voice. But until I do, I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Thank
or,
you.
you know, go to the website. You can email me or, you know, call the office. I'm in the office and I'm one of 2 people here because everybody's working from home. But, you know, if you have questions, feel free to reach out and we'll get answers to you. And a lot of it, frankly, is being developed as we go. You could watch the Board of Commissioner meetings, which are now being held Mondays at, well, 10 or 11, and also watch media releases.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for all your work through this. So
Thank you.
Next week's meeting, I can't remember if I said this, April Students of the Month. I think I did say it.
You did.
Okay. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. My life consists of a Zoom meeting like every hour. So kind of getting to me. But happy Mother's Day to everyone. Try to stay safe and I will see you all next week. Freddie, are you there to lead us in the 4-way test again?
Yeah, I am here, and I also wanted to make an announcement on scholarships that the board voted to award 7 this year for $1,000 each, which I think is really neat because the seniors this year have had kind of a rough end to their school year with no walking or commencement and that sort of thing. So that's a great development, and we'll get the names out too, but all really good students. So. I've got my plaque as the cheat sheet. I'm going to have to make up some flashcards, I think, for the future. It'd be easier, but there we go. So 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth?
The truth.
Second, is it
fair to all concerned?
Third, will it build
Goodwill and
better friendships.
Fourth,
will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And number 5, is it
fun?
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Happy Mother's Day.